All right. You're listening to the Deadmanstome podcast. I'm your host, MrDeadman, and this is a show broadcast live from a trailer park deep in the heart of Meth County, Texas. Okay. Tonight's show, we have Kybus on as a co-host, a real-life vampire, and we have Warren Onufer. How's it going, Mr. Onufer?
I'm here, and I'm loving it.
I'm glad. Are you having a good time? Having a good time? I hope you're having a good time. Me? Not so much. Here at this trailer park, I don't know. Have you ever had to deal with meth kids?
Meth kids? What is that?
Meth kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, see,
Please define.
Crazy Carl let his bag of meth out, and the kids got in it, and we had to, man, just rabbit all over the place, running all over the place. You can't put them to sleep, right? You have to make them just run up and down the street, ride their bikes. Pretty much, you got to get all the energy out. You have to get all the energy out. So we had to spend our time dealing with that. It was a huge thing. It was a huge thing. God dang. By the way, tonight's show is brought to you by Writer's Tears. It is a Irish whiskey. Be drinking some of that. Writer's Tears. You got any of that, Mr. Onufer?
My own or others?
Your own tears. Your own writer's tears. You ever been rejected?
Oh, of course. Of course. You know, and I just find it so funny that some authors like get all whippy and say, "Oh, I'm not worthy," and feel sorry for me. And I'm like, dude, you're a writer, and you're a horror writer at that. So it's like, it happens. Did you expect it was good? Everyone's gonna love your stuff, and that's gonna be it, you know? Right. So anyway, that's kind of a negative downer way to start this whole thing.
But that's the thing. That's what I think this bottle is made out of. Writer's tears, like, you know. So this is that for all you horror authors and any other authors that cry about your rejections. Drink it to you.
I mean, I think, you know, any writer in general is bound to get rejected at some point, but there has to be just a sea of horror writers out there. So it's like, you know, you're gonna face rejection at some point before you find like a publisher you mesh with, and etc. Right. I'm sure.
Right, definitely.
Well, plus I think a lot of new writers think that, you know, you're going to put out one book and you're going to go viral and you're going to conquer the world and you're going to be the next, you know, whoever, whatever, Stephen King. And that's not the case. The word that I'm hearing is you got to put out 5 books before you start getting any momentum. I'm on book 4 myself. Okay. So, you know, you need to be a little more grounded and have a good work ethic and a thick skin.
You definitely do.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was definitely agreeing. I was saying you definitely do. You have to. Now, the one question I usually ask all my guests, to start off from there, and as who are you and what do you do? So we'll take it from there. Mr. Onufer, who are you and what do you do?
Mr. Deadman, call me Warren, okay,
Warren.
please.
Okay, Warren.
I'm liking that you got the respectful tone, but call me Warren.
Okay.
My name is Warren Onufer. Under the name W.J. Onufer, I write the Tales of the Vampire Hadley Price books and produce the Vampire Hadley Price short story collection podcast.
Ooh, okay.
Hadley Price is a petite redhead vampire. She's short. Ooh. Hadley is a superior among vampires. She's faster, stronger, and she could do things that other vampires can't. I'll give this much of a spoiler. In the second book, Torch, Hadley brings someone back from the dead. Okay?
Okay.
And I won't say who that is and what the circumstance was. Go get the book and find out. Hadley lives with her vampire lover, Nathan, and their young vampire ward, Svetlana. And they are quite literally a family. But this is not, a Disney film or some Nickelodeon, TV show. Okay, they are vampires. Okay, and Hadley has a destiny, and over the the story arc of the books. She finds out what that is and how to fulfill it. But a lot of the action takes place within the three of them.
Hmm.
Um, and I have been doing Hadley audio for a couple years, but wasn't liking one place I posted it. So now I post it on Buzzsprout and promote it as a podcast.
Okay.
So what else do you want to know? Because I think I've been practicing that spiel for the last 2 days. So
Okay. No, that's pretty good. I like how you
it's like,
describe.
how do you sum up your entire life's work and you got 4 books out? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of hard to do. It's like writing the synopsis on the back, you know?
You're right. But I like how you described Hadley. She is she's nice to look at. Oh man.
Well,
Redhead, short.
and that is well, first of all, that's my imagination of what she looks like. But the visual presentation of that is by the graphic artist Keith Wood. Okay, and Keith does all of Hadley's book covers and all the promotional graphics that I use from various places online. And the thing about Keith, up until this most recent book, The Family Eternal, which came out back in April, Keith had not read any of my books. He only went by what I described what Hadley, Nathan, and Svetlana look like. And I have to say, his depiction of Hadley is spot on. And I'm really, really lucky to have Keith on my team as far as the visual aspect of it is. And I have to give kudos and like a shout out, so to speak, to Keith for the actual visual presentation of my little vampire gal, Hadley Price.
Hey, that's nice though. Great minds think alike sometimes, you know. So I mean, it's like he knew what you wanted. He knew, what you're thinking, I guess, and he just tapped into that. That's nice. That's very nice. But
Well, he and I are working on some more graphics too.
Okay.
I'm going to freshen up the graphics for after the beginning of going into 2021, and I'm starting to do that work. He and I are starting to do that work now. As a matter of fact, we've been doing it for a couple of months, off and on, and the stuff he's doing now, it's like, I'm like, dude, you rock, you know. So, anyways.
So, of course, like I said before, Kybus is a real life vampire. I'm sure tonight on this show we're going to talk about that. But before we get into that, though, why vampires? Why a vampire book or series?
Well, who are you talking to? Me?
Yes, sir, Warren. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, the short answer is why not? But the not so short answer is, I really like the longevity. 2 things about vampires: the longevity aspect of it. Okay, how they can meet people decades later and she hasn't aged and stuff. And the other thing I like about vampires is what you see is not necessarily what you get. And the thing that I really like about vampires, as far as the horror genre is concerned, is they look like us. Okay, you name any other creature in mythology or in popular culture that is a monster, and they look monstrous. And vampires, what you see is not necessarily what you get. And more so with Hadley, because she's this like really cute petite woman. And there is, a couple of times they get in her face and say, yeah, you don't look so tough. And one scene in which book is it? Is it Torch or Beckman's Folly? I can't even remember some of my own stuff in my own books. She punches her fist to their rib cage and rips out their heart. Okay, so which is both horrible and hilariously funny that this little tiny woman did that. So the longevity aspect and the what you see is not what you necessarily what you get aspect of vampires is interesting to me, particularly when it comes to Hadley, because she's just like, if you don't mess with her, she won't mess with you. But if you mess with her, she will fuck you up. Okay, she will kill you,
Yeah.
and I love that. That you know, and and I guess that's kind of an expansion on how we all kind of feel. Like, if a person is civil, no problem. I'll walk away. I'll forget about you, and that'll be it. But if you mess with me, I will mess you up.
Hmm.
But most of us don't have the skills to mess other people up. And it's kind of fun to be able to do that with Hadley.
Yeah, and going with what you said earlier, that is very interesting about vampires. They do look human. They do look like us, and so there's
The
that.
best ones,
Yeah,
you can't tell.
yeah, like so you don't know what you're gonna get. I mean, there's other monsters that I guess they kind of have that for a
Yes,
little
we
bit.
do. Ha ha
Like
ha.
werewolves, and they look human. They're human, but then they transform, and that's.
Right.
What about a succubus? Do they look human when they're trying to tempt?
That's a good question, because a good succubus would be like a good vampire. They
Yeah,
would be they would be seductive, but not necessarily scary, because they want to attract
yeah,
people, not repel them, attract them.
yeah. I met a few of them in my
Okay.
life, so that,
Yeah, well, I hear you on that too.
I can say
All the
I-
men laughed.
I can say honestly that they absolutely do look human. I've dealt with that before,
but a
and
succubus.
it's usually it's usually a dream thing. It's not something that I mean, I guess somebody could be like inhabited by one in their physical body or something, but they will, like, if you leave yourself open to that, they will come to you in your dreams.
Hmm.
And the easiest way I could describe it is like when you wake up, it's like you have this feeling of like it was the ideal perfect woman
Yeah.
slash mate, everything, and they're gone. It's like you're completely void of that, if it makes sense. They are a very real thing, for sure.
Now, now, this is probably a good time to ask about vampire tropes and stereotypes. I mean, okay, because Warren, have you had a chance to ever talk to a real life vampire?
Not that I'm aware of.
Well,
Um,
now's your chance.
and as we had discussed before showtime, I'm open to the possibility. I will say, um, it happens not infrequently, more at cons than book signings, but cons where you get all the sci-fi, fantasy, horror people together. And one in particular, this guy looked at me straight in the eye and said, "I'm a vampire." And as I had mentioned to you before showtime, I would like to know if there is a vampire. I want to talk to them. So I talked to this guy and I go, "Okay, do you drink blood? Do you do this? Do you do that?" And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." And he goes, "But I don't drink blood." And um, but the point being is, you got your posers, okay? And I try not to call them out, because that doesn't make me look good. But if there is a real vampire, and I'd like to meet one to find out what it's really like. Because if real vampires are like the vampires in my stories, they won't hurt you just to hurt you.
Oh, they have a
Okay?
code.
They
Like they operate on
Well, it's not
ethics or
so much.
something.
Well, it's not so much a code. And that's the thing that Nathan and Hadley are trying to teach Svetlana, who is a young vampire, is don't bring attention to yourself unless you're feeding. Okay? And I'm sorry, where were we going with this? I think I lost my train
It's
of
okay.
thought.
It's
Well,
okay.
there are some things, Warren, that that do translate from the most famous legends and lore that have pieces of truth in them. There are not, to my knowledge, immortal vampires. There are what we typically describe as human living vampires, which at a certain point in our lives, for me, it was around the age of 18. I went through what I can only describe as, kind of like vampire puberty. That's when I started to get the hunger for blood. I
How
started
did you
to
know it was blood you were hungry for?
nothing else. Nothing else would sate it, or satiate that hunger. I would never describe it as a thirst because it does feel like a hunger or a separate hunger from food. Of course, we do still need food, and we are very human. We're just different. As far as we know, it's a biological thing that runs in our families. To my knowledge, I'm the only one in my family that's actually, truly awakened. But when I was 18, that's when, like the blood hunger started to kick in. I got a taste of metaphysics and realized I was able to manipulate those energies and things. And then,
In
other
what
stuff.
way?
Like I can drain psychic energy from someone, or make like energy balls, just basic energy work.
You could
It's
drain energy from someone. Did you just say that? I
yeah,
think you just.
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Can you
psychic
please
energy.
can you please elaborate on that?
Sure. It's more or less like that's the metaphysical side of it. Now, not all human living vampires or real vampires are psychic in any way. And when we say psychic, we're just talking about metaphysical energy, not necessarily like reading someone's mind or something like that. But that's the blood aspect has always been a stronger hunger for me. But I do, it's kind of a more minimalistic hunger for psychic energy, and typically I think a lot of the time I do that subconsciously, and it's kind of like a tingly feeling in my left hand, and that's usually my focus when I am doing it consciously. Is I will use my left
Are you
hand.
left-handed?
No, I'm actually right-handed.
Okay.
So I'll use my left hand as a conduit to kind of pull that energy in, and then I'll filter it, in my spirit body or metaphysic body, and then I usually try and release it like out my right hand.
What is
And
the
I've done.
profile of what is the profile of the person that you would most likely find what you're looking for?
Happy, energetic, outgoing, uh,
Extrovert?
extrovert.
Then
Yeah.
I'm safe.
I'm safe too.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I typically, uh, again, there's only certain things that are true from the movies and myth and stuff. So I don't use those things against someone unless, again, like you said, I really have to defend myself or something. I have before kind of put, that out into the current to get somebody away from me on the bus, say as an example, that was, being kind of funky.
People
Um,
who do not respect personal damn space. Yeah. No, I hear
basically,
you.
yeah, pretty much. So, but yeah, when I was around the age of 18, that's when that stuff really started to hit. Um, and other things that came with that too was a lot of times I have premonitions, or I'll get little bits and pieces of sentences from somebody. Um,
How is it that
I'm very
you appear to
empathic.
you appear to be empathic or psychic or empathic, not the same thing. Um, but how is it that you associate being a vampire with that? How is it that you identify as that, given all the other things are more empathic? This is great stuff. I'm loving this.
Well,
Thank you for
I'm glad.
answering my questions.
yeah, no problem. The feeding aspect for one is definitely, I'm sure, part of what, in my personal, case and other people's cases, that would uh, draw us to use that term. Um, and like you'd asked about the blood thing, that really didn't kick in until everything kicked in. I mean, this was over the period of like a week or 2 weeks, and
That's really quick.
Compared to some other people, mine was somewhat traumatic, and sometimes trauma can actually like bring it on. But the feeding aspect is a major thing. For me, if I don't have my blood regularly, which I showed you in the camera, that's a smoothie with beef blood and almond milk with banana, sugar, and ice, basically.
Do you find that human blood has? I mean, the kind of one of the running tropes is that human blood is more potent than animal blood, which is weird because if you get it from a mammal, it's the same thing. But can you maybe explain that?
Well, I've always chalked it up to being that beef is like, genetically like the closest to human, basically, that we know of and that I'm aware of. I've never tried pork blood. It always kind of turned me off for some reason. I don't think I would like it very much. But with all this COVID stuff and whatever, it's like, I just been sticking with the beef and staying on the safe side because, of course, we can still get sick, die, all that good stuff. So,
and that's the thing is like the whole thing.
A lot of us have donors, though.
A blood rare steak, that's not blood.
No, it's not blood. Absolutely not.
I'm sorry, you were saying donors. Keep going. This is great stuff. I'm loving it. Keep going.
I'm loving this too. It's good.
Stick me in your next book. But yeah, a lot of us, a lot of people have donors. Just for me personally, it's simpler and easier right now to go with the beef thing. It basically falls under 3 different classes. Myself, I'm a hybrid, which means I'm kind of a mix between psi or psychic and sanguinarian, or saying you probably know that. That's
right.
Of blood. And then there's ones that are strictly psychic vampires, and then there's some that are strictly sanguinarian. So I don't require as much blood as, say, a sang, and I've never found that effectual to me to have like a big amount at once. So I usually do like Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
So you feed, so to speak, regularly. Has there ever been a time when you have gone without longer than you would like, and how did it affect you?
Oh, absolutely. I went many years. I tried to deny it for many years.
No, how did it affect you?
In many ways, I fell into addiction. Seems to be a trope for a lot of vampires. If they don't feed, they can be susceptible to, fall into alcoholism or drug abuse. Addiction to porn. It could come in many different forms. Myself, I did feel, more sluggish. I was depressed a lot of the time. I would snap out, rage out at people around me, because it's not. Some people do get physically sick though, and that's probably the thing that kept me from getting sick, Warren, is that there is a psychic element to my vampirism. So obviously I wasn't consciously having blood on a regular basis, but I was still subconsciously being psychically. So, and just to clarify for you and any of the viewers, that it's not the same thing. Anybody that thinks all is one and one is all is full of crap. There's no psychic energy element to having, blood. It is two, separate things. So, I think that's probably the only thing that kept going. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Do you associate with any other people who are experiencing the same thing? And to what extent is that association, how does that association manifest itself?
It will manifest itself in that we can usually pick each other out of a crowd. We give off kind of a certain signature to each other that some people can pick up on, but most people, most laymen will not pick up on unless we really, throw in their face type thing. But
And you would need a reason to do that.
right, of course, yeah, and that is true. I mean, that's very true for like the fictional aspect to the reality of it is that it's not. You shouldn't. We don't want to bring attention to ourselves when we're out and about because we're still not very accepted in modern day society for the most part. So it has its place and time, but there's of course those psychos out there that think we're like out to harm people or something. So I'm not gonna walk up to somebody and be like, hey, guess what? I'm a vampire. Like, I could see that guy doing that with you being an author, and that's like kind of your trope, but
yeah, that's gonna happen at a convention.
The best way I could.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing, JC.
Yeah, at a convention, sure.
Chances are, and just give me an idea to have Hadley go to a con and and talk to it. Yeah, I just know, dude. You just gave me an idea for a story. But if this person, the other person I was talking to about the con, if I was looking into their eyes and they managed to make their pupils go like this, or it changed color or something, I wouldn't be repelled. I'd go,
you'd be interested.
I'd go, let me buy you dinner tonight.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, okay. It's really funny you bring that up. You know what I'm saying?
If they can give me any indication,
my eyes change.
And understand, I'm a horror author. Don't try to scare me like this person did.
Right.
My business is horror, so you're not going to
Mm-hmm.
scare me unless you're the real thing.
Right.
In which
Did
case,
you hear me?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said my eyes change when I feed. They'll go from blue to green.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And sometimes they'll be kind of like a grayish color. But surprisingly, my wife is the one that figured that out. And it actually happens like feeding from blood or psychic energy. Surprisingly, no. She's a whole different animal.
Is she your dedicated donor?
Literally.
Is she Wiccan?
Sometimes.
Is she?
Oh, she's a Therian. She's a let's see.
Please define Therian. I don't know what that. I've never heard that term.
Okay, well, in more realistic terms, a Therian is more or less kind of a natural shaman.
So Wiccan doesn't apply.
No. Actually, no religion would apply to either real vampires or Therians.
Well, okay, you're right. Wiccan is a religion, but it's also what they define themselves as. So I'm sorry. Keep going. This is interesting.
So what a Therian is, for the most part, is kind of like a natural shaman, and that has at least one animal that's kind of like their main totem. And hers is a snow lynx. So she has some aspects of a cat. I mean,
exactly is the function of a totem.
She knows more about it than me. I'm not exactly schooled in that thing.
Is that they relate to them? Is there actually a connection, or is it just
both? She relates to them, and then there's a connection, like where I have wings that obviously you can't physically see, but that I feel, and some people have actually felt. But she sometimes she'll feel her tail. She's very empathic, like I am, and she deals a lot with some dead spirits that have unfortunately kind of lost their way when they left the physical life.
She's also dabbling in necromancy.
I mean, I would think it's more of a natural thing.
Necromancy is bringing bodies back to life. So I'm sorry, that was the wrong definition.
Yeah,
more. Think of the river Styx. Carrying them, taking them to go rest, because for whatever reason they died in torment or despair, and they're stuck here for some reason. So her thing is definitely different than than the vampiric thing. But I told her, I was like, well, I actually asked her about that coming on the show, and she's like, oh yeah, once I finally get to some major some ghost places that have like huge activity of spirits, after that then I will. I'm like, okay, fine.
Wow.
Well, see, JC, dude, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
Oh, okay,
Some of
cool.
this stuff I did not know about.
Yeah.
This is interesting stuff.
Well, and it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say about the wings is like, I gotta ask, how do you know that you have wings if you can't see them?
Oh, Damien was saying totem may be chosen, spirit, animal, or guide is different. Yeah, I mean, that's just the best way I can describe it, Damien, or for anyone listening. She would be able to describe it much better than me because she is the one living the first person dealio. So, what were you saying? What did you ask?
About the wings. You said something about wings, that you have wings, but we can't see them. How do you
yeah,
know?
It's more of a metaphysical appendage would be the best way to put it.
Okay.
Usually when
Is
I'm
it-
high,
Is
when I'm
is
high
it
energy,
functional?
yes,
Is it functional?
I
Can
can
you
flap.
fly?
I can flap them. No, I can't fly. I wish. I'm actually afraid of heights, ironically. Uh, but no, the wing thing is not. That's more or less kind of one of those things that's hit or miss. Not everybody that's a real vampire or identifies that way is necessarily going to have that. Sometimes I find, especially when I've psychically fed, they tend to have a mind of their own, and they're rather erratic and hyper. um, but I have had people, put that are energetically sensitive, I guess would be a good way to put it. Their hands like over my back, and they can actually feel them. Or I've had people actually be able to hear them when I consciously like flap them. But like I said, as far as I know, it is just kind of a hit or miss thing as far as if
What
somebody,
purpose do they serve? Is it a
I
metaphor? Is it a message? If they're not functional, what purpose do they serve?
mean, I think sometimes I use them to focus. I'll use them to focus as a focus center, like when I'm feeding or doing some type of energy work. Um, I don't know that they necessarily serve any particular function. A lot of times I tune them out because they get on my nerves.
Okay.
That's
They just
interesting.
like, sometimes they just won't stop moving and stuff, and a lot of times I just tune it out because it's like, especially when I lay down to go to sleep, if I'm laying on my back or sitting against a chair, sometimes it can be very uncomfortable, even sometimes wearing a shirt, because it feels like I'm covering that part of myself, like I'm smothered or something.
Interesting.
Some of this stuff is really hard to put into words. Like, you try and describe it as best you can. But
Mr. Deadman, can I make a comment at this
Sure.
point?
Sure. Go ahead.
Um, um, Cabus has described. I don't want to. You're here. I don't want to talk about you in the third person. You have described a lot of things that are a definite thing, but it appears to be there's crossover, and I understand that as a fiction writer because I play with that myself. Okay, um, and what I'm doing is I'm disconnecting from your reality, and I'm saying, and I'm plugging into my fantasy. Okay,
mhm.
um, and it's interesting that like little things. What is the difference between a vampire and a zombie? Well, one dresses a little better, can actually talk in coherent sentences. I mean, when you think about it, they both feed on humans. Okay, so it's interesting to kind of play with that, even though people tend to think of them as two different things. And as far as a creative writing experience and the fantasy world of the Hadleyverse, um, like like my vampires eat food and have sex. whereas Anne Rice's vampires don't do either.
Right. That's
Right.
good.
And I think being an immortal and not being able to experience those two things would greatly de-emphasize the quality of life. And particularly with Hadley and her lover Nathan, they go at it all the time, and that's a lot of fun. That they have that kind of that human experience, and like Nathan likes chocolate and Hadley likes coffee. Um, so I'm really enjoying what you have been telling us, Cabus. And
Kybus.
is it Kybus? I got it written down here on my cigarette. Kybus. Oh, by the way, please Facebook friend me, okay?
Oh yeah, I
Um,
got you.
and by listening to your experience, um, it, people who are listening to this podcast
Mm-hmm.
may have tuned in to find out what I create in my vampires in the Tales of the Vampire Hadley Price books. And what we're happening here is we are talking to someone who claims to be a vampire, and they're what you're saying is just as interesting as things that I make up. Okay. And there is a crossover here between my fantasy of the Hadley Price verse and your reality.
That's why I
Okay.
wanted. That's why I wanted you guys to have this talk. I was like, you know what? I bet you. Once you start having this
Set up.
talk, yeah, it was like I was setting you guys up. Look at that, setting you guys up for a date. You like it?
Well, it didn't tell me that. I don't know if this was supposed to be the way it's coming out, but it's all good. I'm loving it, because I thought it was just going to be you and me, Mr. Deadman.
Oh, it's okay.
But,
It's okay.
yeah.
No, but I like this because one thing I was going to ask, I think you kind of got into it, is having heard from Kybus, his real life vampire experience. How does that compare to Hadley? How does that compare to your fictional vampires?
The Hadley, Nathan, and Svetlana are all about not giving away their secret.
Mhm.
Okay, so when they're at home, and Svetlana says, "Do you want a glass of the red?" She goes to the fridge and takes out the blood flask, and the three of them have a glass of blood, but they would never do that in public. Okay, they and
I wouldn't either.
I think in horror there may be too much emphasis on extreme horror.
Oh yeah.
Because, and maybe that's why I write vampires, because while Hadley is capable of mutilating someone, and she does, that's not her normal modus operandi. She's the proper lady all the time. She's a friendly little cutie.
Mhm.
And if you don't piss her off and be a jerk, you'll have a nice little conversation on the corner walking by, and then you both go your separate ways. And that, at some point in every book, Hadley has got to be violent. You got to have the payoff.
Mm-hmm.
But my vampires in the Hadley verse are all about not being posers, even though Nathan is like this handsome dude, and Svetlana is this tall, hot blonde, and Hadley's the cute little hottie. They're. I'm kind of rambling on here.
No.
Help me out here.
I like what you're
I'm
saying.
kinda-
Hey, no, it's good. You're doing good. You're doing well. You're doing well.
Yeah.
But yeah, what Kybus said, he doesn't put his vampire stuff out there in public that often. He doesn't feed in public. He kind of keeps it low key. Sounds like.
I mean, you could feed psychically in public. To me, I usually keep the blood feeding at home. Now that's not everybody. That's just my personal, reprimand them or whatever. But I mean, you talk about posers, like, God, man, you have no clue. You think you know posers.
Oh,
Well,
this.
one thing that you're proving right now is one thing that Hadley, Nathan, and Svetlana never do, and you're not doing it at this moment. And that is the cliche, the trope, and I prefer to call it a cliche, is when you see a vampire, particularly in promotional materials, they got blood dripping down their mouth.
That's a waste. That's sloppy
And
feeding.
Hadley, you're drinking blood right now, and it's not dripping down your mouth. That's
Right.
very Hadley-ish, okay? Because Hadley has to lecture her daughter. It's like, come on, you're being a mess. Okay, this is not a Hammer film.
That's a good point. I never really
is
thought about it
reality.
that way. I never really thought
Okay,
about it that way. That's good.
Right, and the whole, and you see it not just in Hammer films. You see it in a lot of films where the vampires bulging their eyes and showing their fangs, and they got the blood, and it's like, when you're done doing all of that, and you got to go back
serious?
on the street, it's a lot easier to clean up if you didn't mess to begin with.
Right.
And if your goal is to feed, that's Hadley, Nathan, and Svetlana. That's their goal, to get the blood and drink it. Don't be a mess while you're doing it.
Right. And what Kaiba said, it would be such a waste. Imagine being like an alcoholic.
I mean, it really is. I mean,
spilling the alcohol from your mouth as you drink. Like the whiskey.
Right, exactly. It's a way. Right. It was spot on, dude. Spot on.
I mean, imagine being sloppy drunk right now and just letting this whiskey just pour in my mouth as I try to drink it. That'd be horrible. I'd be like, what's going on? Man. But tying this back to your books, one thing I definitely want to know is, one, how's your series doing, and what's been the feedback like?
It's. I will answer that by saying this. When you're a new author, and I put my first book out 5 years ago, okay, so I'm still relatively new. The general rule of thumb is you don't start getting some real momentum until your fifth book. And I just released my fourth book, okay? And I don't mean to be evasive, but I will say that any author would want to sell more books than they already do.
Right.
Now, having said that, I sell. I do sell. And that's why I love going to cons, because, I've done libraries, and that's not really my crowd. But you go to a con, and every single person in that knows who River Song is, okay? They know that 42 is the answer to a question, and they know what the question is. So you see what I'm saying? Dude, you're laughing because you know what I'm saying, right? You're one of us. But
nerds.
But when I'm at a con, I sell books, and I'm loving it. Okay.
How many cons do you do a year?
I do. The thing is, I'm going to answer your question. I'm not getting off the subject here. Bear with me, please. I'll be as brief as possible.
It's okay.
My very first con was Memphis Comic and Fantasy in Memphis, Tennessee. And that's because my editor and my graphic artist lived in Clarksville. So I took a plane out and we all went to Memphis Comic and Fantasy, and it was great. No two ways about it. Big city con are great. Met a lot of people, sold a lot of books. But the fact of the matter is, getting on a plane, feeding yourself, it's expensive. Okay? So getting back to answer your question, I do cons locally.
Okay.
And there are two that happen here locally. And one of the two is officially canceled. And the other, which was supposed to happen, I think, back in May, I think, has been rescheduled to September. And given Rona, I'm not entirely sure I'm going to attend.
Yeah, man, that thing is messed. Yeah. Man,
But your
Corona-chan
original
messed up
question
everything.
was how many cons? Your original question was how many cons do you do a year? Anything. I always look into anything that's within 50 miles of where I live, and I live in the Northeast. So there's Boston, there's Hartford, there's like lots of stuff happening, and if I can't drive there, I tend not to go. I would love to go to New
It
York
makes
City
sense.
and do a con. I would love to do
Oh, that'd be
Memphis Comic
nice.
and Fantasy again, but the airplane ride was what, $500 just to get there and back, and I'm not going to sell that many books. So I do stuff locally. So getting back to your original question, I do like 2 or 3 a year,
2 or 3
and
cons a
always
year. Okay.
and always looking around for other
Now
opportunities.
here's a big question here, and feel free to go as deep as you want about this, because writers do listen to the show, and sometimes they are wanting to know whether or not cons are worth it for them, and of course authors, they want to make money. If there's money in it, it's definitely gonna be worth it for them.
Right.
How much do you usually make, ballpark figure, or you can describe it however you want, when you go to a con? Like, does it pay for
Well,
all your
I'm not.
expenses, or go ahead? Sorry.
Well, I'm not going to give away my numbers.
Oh,
Okay, I'm not
that's
going to
okay.
do that.
No,
I will say,
general.
I will say that you tend to make more money when you don't have to pay out more to be there.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so it is a very practical consideration, and that's the one thing a lot of new authors don't get, is that you got to get more grounded. You have to not just be a writer, you got to be a promoter, and you got to be a businessman. And it's awful because our primary skill as writers is writing. Okay.
Yeah.
But getting back to the original point, do I make money on the locals? Yes, because I don't pay out a lot of money in expenses. They are significantly lowered if I don't have to go to a big city.
And that's a good answer. That's a good answer. So anyone, of course, right now with Corona-chan changing things, like how do we do it now? Like, do you have any advice now, or are you figuring it out?
You
Like,
know,
hitting up writing groups. I don't know what we do. Like Facebook.
well, but see, the thing is, you're an internet animal. You're a podcaster, so the internet is what you do, and you may or may not do cons, but I'm trying to sell books where you want to literally put a book in someone's hand that you're looking at right there. And there is nothing that replaces that. Now, having said that, what I'm doing is I am increasing my internet presence, because that's one thing I can do from home.
Right.
And I'm doing various things to increase and increase the frequency of things I'm on now, and to be in other places. That's what I'm doing now.
Like your podcast.
Will it exactly? I actually have an Instagram account, but I don't do anything with it, and that's one of the things I'm looking into. Okay. Excuse me.
No problem.
So, and doing things like being on a podcast with a couple of friendly guys, that's the kind of thing you do as an author when you can't get out and talk to people live and in person. That my answer is increase my internet presence.
That is very important to do. That's kind of what you have to do now. And you're right. Coming on podcasts such as Deadmanstome podcast or any other podcasts, and talk about your book, talk about what you work on. And I know in this episode we talked quite a bit about real life vampires, but it ties into what you do, and it's kind of add the interesting element to that. So people you tune into this episode, be like, oh, real life vampires, what are they talking about? And it talk about your book as well. It's like, hey, look at that. Hey, it's like And you also have another thing you're doing, like with your podcast. How long have you been doing that? You've been, I guess, turning your stuff into like a series, a podcast series.
Right. Well, I had them on. What was it? Not SoundCloud. It was something else, and it really wasn't going anywhere. So earlier this year, I opened a Buzzsprout account, and have started marketing these short stories as a podcast. Okay, so and again, increasing my internet presence by getting serious about this. You understand? Whereas before this, I posted it, and that was it, and it was like, okay, yeah, whatever.
Right.
Now I'm a lot more proactive in doing a lot of marketing and calling it a podcast, not just a place to go and listen to stories kind of thing, which is the way it wasn't SoundCloud. What was it? Mixcloud. Was it Mixcloud? Yes. And I kind of like that stuff is still there.
Okay.
And I'm going to little by little import it into the podcast. What was the original question? I've got so far out of the tangent.
It's okay.
Here.
No, we're talking about your podcast because that's one way to market your stuff, especially now when it's pretty much internet only right now because conventions are pretty much.
But think about if Rona happened and the internet didn't exist. I think, yeah. So, but anyways, I've been doing the narrating Hadley short stories, I'd say for 2 or 3 years. But it's only within the last, since Rona, that I've gotten serious about it. Okay. So again, when I say increasing internet presence, it not only means finding new places to have a presence, but getting really damn serious on the presences that I'm already on.
Now, when you do your podcast, have you been? Were you inspired by other like radio dramas or other story podcasts where they'll read the story and they'll add like sound effects or add like a?
Absolutely, I know the exact answer to that question. I have been very influenced by a podcast called The Byron Chronicles by a fellow by the name of Eric Busby. Eric, 5 years ago when I put my first book out, I friended Eric, and I had been listening to his stuff for like a good 8-10 years, a long time, and really he does the Byron Chronicles, but he does some other stuff too. But he's primarily known for the Byron Chronicles, and the quality of his audios is just outstanding. His writing is amazing. His actors are amazing. The production is just world class. And 5 years ago, when I put out my first book, I sent Eric a friend request, thinking, well, no, whatever. And then he accepted. I'm like, whoa. Then one day, my private message comes up, and it's Eric. And he said, how would you like to write a episode of the Byron Chronicles? And I was like, after I picked myself off the floor, I said, yeah, sure, I would love to. And so I got to give a huge shout out to Eric Busby as a person. And Eric and I have actually met face to face once. He gave me that chance early on to kind of expand my situation and, pad my resume, so to speak. And since then, Eric and I have co-written 2 other scripts for the Byron Chronicles. And interestingly enough, all 3 of these scripts, my character Hadley and his character Byron interact.
Cool.
So again, he was really generous by letting Hadley into the Byron verse. So again, I've off on a tangent and I forgot what the original question is.
Oh, I was talking if there was an influence, like a radio drama or a podcast. Yeah. And by the way, I pulled up an episode of the Byron Chronicles. I'm not gonna play the whole thing, obviously. I'll just play a snippet, like a couple seconds, so people could hear.
Play a clip of it.
Yeah.
It's world class. It's very good.
Of course you can.
All right, you got the atmospheric music.
The sound of the alert horn startles me, and I drop the small glass ornament.
Oh, that's good.
It shatters as it hits the wooden floor. But all I can think of is that...
Okay, see, I want to play more. That's
awesome.
That's cool right there.
It's amazing stuff. And I would say that I'm absolutely influenced by what I do in my podcast, because I have sound effects and I alter my voice because I don't have actors. I can't afford to pay people, and I don't know any actors who would do that for free.
Right.
So I do it myself, and I mix in music and I mix in sound effects, and I'm heavily interested in what Eric's stuff sounds like. And there'll be times when I'll be listening and he'll do something and I'll go, wow, that was really cool. And then I deconstruct it, to see if I can use it,
right.
Like not directly rip him off, but see if I could do something about like that. And technically, how would I do it? So getting back to your original question, what influences me on audio? Eric Busby, absolutely, no two ways about it.
Man, I just played
Huge.
this a couple seconds. I could see why.
That sounded really intense. I really liked that. It sounded like kind of dystopian, like in your face, loud. Like I like that.
The thing that Eric has done something very interesting with the character of Byron. Unlike my Hadley stuff, Hadley is a vampire. You know that. Vampire. You know that. The thing about Byron is you don't really know who or what he is. And I remember years ago when I first started listening to the Byron Chronicles, my first thought was, he's a vampire. And then, no, he's not. Then my second thought was, he's Satan or the devil. And then something in one of the episodes proved that wasn't it either. And then I thought, could this be God? And then I listened to a few more episodes and found out, nope, he's not that either. So if you ask me, what is Byron? I can't tell you. And Eric is really creative use of not knowing who and what Byron is. And this gets back to like the whole issue of horror, and one critical element of horror is mystery.
I like that.
Okay, and I think when you add horror and mystery, you get fantasy, and Eric's stuff is science fiction, and it is, but I think the best umbrella term to use what he does is fantasy.
I can see there, like he's building a world in this, like in a world that you get immersed in.
More than one. Like it's no, dude. It's not just planetary epic. It's universal epic.
Wow, that's cool.
It's
Yeah, I get what you mean here, because like I've listened to some other horror themed I don't know what you call it, I guess radio dramas, like the Grey Rooms, Serenicide. They're all, at least the ones I mentioned, I know from experience, they're pretty good production. I know Serenicide, they used to be a band, but they discovered they can make more money. They could actually make more money doing audio dramas than they could just actually performing live on stage. And they already had the equipment. They already had like the actors because the band could do it. They put it all together and it worked for them. They're actually here.
Could you send that in a private message to me on Facebook? I want to look that up. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, I'll shoot you a link after the show, definitely. But
right,
Serenicide's one. The Grey Rooms. Now I don't know too much about their production. I know they have a sound guy. They have a director who he coordinates with actors, and they are willing to work for free. But they're people he knows. If you had that resource, definitely use it.
Right.
And I hear stuff like that. It inspires me to want to do it. Here's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain skills I don't have. The different voices, I could just do redneck. I could just do redneck, and that's it. That's the only voice I can really do. So
You're breaking up, man. Is he breaking up for you?
No,
He's just
man.
breaking up for me.
Man, I am breaking up. Am I breaking up?
Okay, no, it's back.
Yeah. Sorry, I had my mic muted. Yes, yeah, a little bit here and there. Yeah.
Okay, no, it sounds like you're back.
All right, am I back now?
Back
right,
from
that's
outer
good.
space.
Back from outer
You
space.
need to check out an audio drama called "We're Alive,"
We're live. Okay.
and I think there's like 3 different versions of it, and you might call them seasons, but there's just dozens and dozens of episodes. And what it is it's a zombie thing, end of the world zombie thing.
Ooh, cool.
And you may be intimidated by how many episodes they have up, but start from the very beginning.
Nice. Okay.
And it's just and it's like you said, it's like you listen to that stuff and you want to do it yourself. Like as a creative person, you want to do it yourself. As a listener, you go, damn, this is great stuff. But to which I would add, you don't really know what you know until you try to do something new, and you can repurpose other things you know and funnel it into that. Like I said, I started out, I'm still working in commercial radio. And that's how I learned how to do sound production before digital editing, okay? So, now that there's digital editing, it's so much easier. But when you say you thought about doing it, just consider what you know and how that could be repurposed to do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but give me a call because I want in on helping you with that.
That sounds good. And
I'm absolutely serious, dude.
Hey, well, I'll definitely give you that call.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have experience in radio, like you actually work professionally in radio.
Yes.
Dang. So you know all like the tools and the applications to use and all that.
Well, and see here again, this gets back to what we were talking about, doing things on a budget. Now, I can name drop all kinds of audio editing software that cost a chunk of money on stuff like what Eric would use. Okay. But I use something called Audacity, which a lot of podcasters are familiar with Audacity.
Yeah.
It is a free piece of software.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's what I use. Free software. It's like you don't need to get Microsoft Office. You can get,
Open Office.
Kingsoft or what's the other thing I'm spacing right now?
I use Open Office. It's the free version of Microsoft
Open Office. Yeah,
yeah,
that's the one I'm thinking about.
I'm like the piece that doesn't really fit in the publishing world because I still use free stuff. So when people send me their stuff, they want to edit. I'm like, hey, it's gonna be in my format though when you get it back.
Right.
But
to which what I say to that when someone says, "Oh, you don't have Adobe," blah blah blah. My thing is this: in both writing books, audiobooks, books, ebooks, audiobooks. The only thing that matters is the end product.
Right.
How you get there? Do we lose him?
No. Kybus is still here. I'm still here.
Oh,
No,
dude.
I'm still here.
Oh.
I just had my camera off for a second.
Oh, okay. The only thing that matters is the end product.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to save it in a way that people can open up with other programs. So if you use Audacity or you use Open Office, save it as a Microsoft doc or save it as an MP3 or an what would you call it? PNG, whatever.
PDF. That's what you're thinking of.
No, that's
What About Adobe
Oh,
PDF.
whatever. Whatever. But you save it in a way that other people can open it.
True. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Between OpenOffice and Audacity and Inkscape, these are all free programs.
Mm-hmm.
You could do a lot of stuff with this.
You really can.
And it gets back to what I'm saying is that take what you know and repurpose it to do something you've never done before.
That's good. That's good advice. I
No,
like that.
but seriously, JC, you're interested in getting an audio, call me, because maybe I can work on yours, you work on mine, or we do something together. I'm
Maybe.
very interested in doing
Because
that.
the only thing I've really done now, and maybe it's because of kind of I guess the limited amount of time I have, maybe the limited amount of time I allot myself, I don't know. But the only real record audio version I've really done of, like, let's say my stories is more like a story time where it's like, gather around, boys and girls. Now we're going to be reading a story, and I present it like
What's
that.
wrong with that? Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing
That's
wrong
cool.
with that. It doesn't have the bells and whistles. It doesn't have like the atmosphere, and I love that stuff.
Post production makes all the difference. It really does. But the way you're talking about it sounds cool. Here's a suggestion. Let's just say, come in and warm your hands on the fire.
Yeah.
And kind of get a kind of a gothy thing going. This is just what I'm hearing in my head. And in the background, you have the sound of flames flickering.
I like that.
And then when you read, make sure the pages are near your mic so you can hear the pages turning.
Ooh, that's good.
Okay.
there you go.
And as this is going, the flickering flames are still in the background. I mean, you could do really simple stuff that really does, increase the quality of the thing that you're doing. The flames in my head, I'm thinking that's what I was just hearing.
Oh, that would be a
Gather
cool
around,
idea.
boys and girls,
and
or
gradually,
come in, warm your hands on the fire, and all you're doing is narrating.
right,
It doesn't cost you anything.
right. And
you know?
if I wanted to take it up to another level, it's like as the story progresses, as you get into the story, maybe certain sounds are coming up. I don't know. You get kind of lost in it, and it kind of blends into something else. Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Well, another thing you can do. This is just an idea to throw out. If gather around, boys and girls, is have that the flames in the background. Have a little music at the beginning, and then you come in, and the flames in the background, and then have like 20 minutes of the flames. Okay, so all you got to do is talk over it.
Yeah.
Okay, there's so many ways to do this that, again, this gets back to what I was saying about deconstructing Eric Busby's stuff. There's ways to do these things.
That's pretty good advice. I like that. And when I asked that, it's not just for me. It's for, of course, other writers that would be listening. So definitely, it could be something simple, guys.
Well,
because if you want to diversify yourself in a COVID environment where you can't go to conventions anymore, put your internet, presence out there. You got to find a way to do it. And audiobooks or having a simple podcast where you're reading your story, using the resources you have to kind of like make it a little better. That's good ideas.
Well, plus, when, I record the Hadley stuff, and then I go in and I edit the hell out of it. Okay. And that's just the voice. Okay. And then just putting in the sound effects, and it's just, if you listen to any of the stuff I do, even the simplicity of what I do is a lot of work. But when you're done, you're like, oh yeah, this works. It's totally worth it. Totally, totally worth it.
I like that. Okay. Now, one question I always ask all my guests is, what is your favorite horror movie and why? But being that this is a vampire-themed podcast, or episode, I should say, do you have a favorite vampire horror movie? Or just actually vampire movie, TV show, whatever?
I'll answer both of those questions.
Sure.
Favorite horror movie? I would say Alien. That thing was the original Alien.
That's a good one.
That thing was terrifying. And to which I would add The Day the Earth Stood Still. Okay. Now, are you familiar with the original version of that movie?
I am not.
Go right when we're done. Go find it somewhere online and watch it. It's amazing, and it was also terrifying. Favorite vampire movie? There's so many different kinds. Mm-hmm. The original Fright Night. What was the name of that movie? It came out within the last couple of years. The Only Lovers Left Alive. That one was a lot more subtle. The Quentin Tarantino movie. The one where they're in Mexico. I'm totally spacing with the name of that movie.
From Dusk Till Dawn?
But Dusk Till Dawn, yes. But as you see, these three different movies, they're three different kinds of vampires. But I would say that those are probably my favorite. What are yours? And each of you gentlemen, what are yours?
Let's see.
Oh man, that's probably oh shoot. Oh gosh, what's it called?
When it comes to vampire movies, it has to be Twilight.
You're doing what I just did. I'm like, oh yeah, that movie, and you can't remember the name of it.
It was originally a foreign film, and I did,
Let
I
the Right
originally,
One in.
Yes.
Right one.
Okay,
That's
so I like the American one. I don't care what anyone says. I'm sorry, it was just better. It was just being an American. I don't know.
The original was so good. I haven't seen
a lot of people make they make the comparison that, okay, one is about a kid that just happens to be a vampire, and one's about a vampire that's a child. So, and I think that comparison is probably pretty good. Let Me In is more or less like, okay, this is a vampire that happens to be a child, versus Let the Right One In. You get more of that kid feel than a predator in a skin suit. So
yeah,
they're both
that's
good.
the thing, is that the foreign films, with all due respect, generally speaking, when Americans remake foreign films, they just don't get that foreign film feel.
Right.
It's sort of like, don't try to make Doctor Who in the United States. Doctor Who is a Brit. You know what I'm saying? Don't try to make things that are original elsewhere and make them here, and try to Americanize them, because it just won't be the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we're on the same page as far as the story is concerned on that one. What about you, JC?
I was gonna say Let the Right One In. I was joking saying Twilight, but no, Let the Right One In is a good one. It is. If I want to go action though, I'm torn between Underworld or the original Blade. If I want to go action,
The original Blade. Yes, the original Blade.
Because they're making a remake, and I hope that doesn't happen.
Well, it definitely won't be a continuation, but I don't think it'll be a remake. I think it's really going to be a reboot. In the aspect that I don't think they're going to bring back Frost and the whole, it's like they might touch on the whole Whistler thing and his mom and whatever, but I really don't think they're going to go hardcore and like, okay, let's word for word redo those movies. And personally, I think a lot of the fans, including myself, would hate to see that. Like Mahershala Ali is a very accomplished actor, and he can absolutely nail that part and make it his own. So hopefully that's they go a kind of wild direction with it.
Well, plus all the actors are 15 years older now, or 20, well, whatever. They're not going to look like they're 25 or 30, and that is really important, because fans are going to want the vampires to look like they did in the first movie. Um, I just think the Blade movies, by the time they got to the third one, they just got so out there
Yeah.
that it was just kind of a confused mess. That's why the first one was so
Well,
good. You knew
yeah, it
there
was
were
good.
vampires, there were humans, and that was the way it worked, you know?
Blade 2 got a little weird. but-
Wesley hated that making the last one. If
yeah.
you dig into that story a little bit, he absolutely hated it. His stand-in actually did a lot of the shots because, you know, he was just almost impossible to work with for the last film because, you know, they really had taken what it was going to be and convoluted it. So
It was so muddled that, whatever. It was entertaining for what it was, but it's like, where do you go from there? When you got something muddled that was kind of pretty clear, where do you go from there, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think even Cool Tactic in the chat mentioned the Blade movie where they fight with flashlights really sucked. Was that Blade 3? I don't know which one that is. Which one they fight with flashlights? I know they used the flashlight in the first one.
I think that was 2.
That was
Pretty sure that was 2.
was
I think
2?
Yeah, because they had the UV lights because they found
that's
out
right.
the ones that you know, the vampires that were made from that weird virus strain, that was like the only thing that they were basically allergic to was UV light, so they had to use that.
What was that in? That was in oh,
Blade 2.
the Coreys, the two Coreys did they did the original, and then the one Corey did one years later that had those flashlighty things.
I don't
You know what I'm saying? It had the original had Kiefer Sutherland in it. Oh man,
the Lost Boys.
we got to give it a Lost Boys, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then years later, what the Corey that was still alive did another one, and it was more of a B movie, but it was still they used those flashlighty things that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. But that was handled better than what happened in Blade in Blade 2. The first Blade, man, that rave scene, the opening scene, that's how you open a fucking movie, man. Yeah, God,
But see, guys, if you really did, I loved it because it's so. I plugged into it because if you had a vampire club that was just vampires, okay, no humans went in, and they all went there. Actually, I think there were some humans in there, weren't there? But the whole shower blood thing, that's what extreme vampires would do.
I've said that, and I would
Right.
absolutely love to be in a techno disco club with you know, sprinkler system spraying. I mean, as long as we know it's clean and it's you know, because whether you stick your head up and open your mouth or not, it's going to soak into your skin. So, you know, hey, let's be safe here. But yeah, I would go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs for that.
Well, this gets back to the whole making a mess. When that scene was done, in reality, not in the movie, if it really happened, does everybody go to the shower now and shower off and change clothes to get into their Lomo to go home when they leave the club? Those are things I think about.
I'm sorry, I was playing the Blade rave music real fast. I can only play a little bit of it live, otherwise you get flagged for copyright. But that music right there.
Yeah, but how can you not hear? How can you hear that and not see everyone like putting their hands up and the things and the stuff is coming down, and the lights are flashing? How can you not see that in your head as a visual? You know.
Man, that whole scene was great too. Like the music, the atmosphere, I would like to be there just as a human sacrifice. Bite me, feed off me. I just want this better than what I have going on. You know, that'd be cool. Hell, the fight scene afterwards when they're using swords.
Hadley would defend me on that one and say, "No, he's mine. Go away," and everyone would go away. So no.
Man. Oh man. So yeah, that was a good movie. All right. Okay. Before we wrap up here, where can people get your books?
Pretty much any online bookstore. The thing I will mention is my book came out, my new book, The Family Eternal, came out in April. And just about the same time, Rona started making trouble for us. So what happened is the ebook was released, and they delayed the release of the paper book until I think August or September. I forgot. So I would recommend go on Tales of the Vampire Hadley Price Facebook page, and go through the posts. And there's a place to get the book through my publisher, BookBaby, directly, where you can get a hardcover copy, a paperback hard copy of it. Otherwise, the rest of the books in the series, they're available. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and like it or not, Walmart. They're actually on Walmart's book site.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so yeah.
Well, definitely check out his books there. I mean, that series sounds pretty good. I need to read. Oh, okay. I definitely need to do some reading on that. Once I'm done, after the first and second, I'll definitely leave a review. Man. Anyway, guys, ladies, thank you so much for watching. Yeah, have a good one. Make sure you share, like, subscribe. It definitely helps out the podcast, helps out the YouTube channel and all that. You guys, ladies, y'all take it easy.
Thanks.